Right. So before we get into AI and how we can use AI, I think we should primarily understand what is it that you guys as doctors do on a daily basis. So how does the whole process happen for you guys? So somebody comes to you, obviously if he or she is unwell, right? So there are a set of symptoms that come up and you ask questions and you get details of that. And then of course the next parameter or the input that you will get is the age, gender, etc. And then of course the question that you would ask is about the family history, the lifestyle, the kind of food that they eat, etc. And then of course the geographical area that they come from. For example, somebody coming from the north could have a different kind of a thing. If you're a coastal guy, the kind of problems that you could have is different, and the kind of mountains it could be different, and so on and so forth, correct? Right. The next thing that you will put together is the clinical data or the results that you get, various kinds of tests and stuff like that you do. And then all these things together, along with the body of knowledge that you have, your experience comes into play. Because all this is available to you, the body of knowledge is also available. How do you put it together is the experience that you gain over a period of time. And this lands up in the diagnosis that you do, correct? Then that will land up in the treatment, and eventually you have an outcome, which is a cure or a no cure or a partial cure, correct? Agree? Many people don't agree. Okay, let me see. How many don't agree? Okay, good. So essentially, this plus this plus this plus this results in this, which results in an outcome. That's all you guys do here. Pure arithmetic. It's not even mathematics. It's pure arithmetic. Correct? How many say yes? And how many say that you adi vaangama pomata? Okay, so for those guys who think that it is actually not accurate figure, this is actually the situation. How many agree on this now? That there are a lot of permutations and combinations. Some of them direct correlations, some of them very strong correlations, some of them negative correlations. How many agree on this? That this is what you guys are actually taught 6, 7 years, 25, 30 years when you practice. This is what you master. Correct? Now let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, I had some body pain. Okay, I play once in a while. So when you play once in a while, what happens is you exert once in a while. You do have some muscle aches for some time. It goes away in 2 days' time. So that pain wasn't that. So then I waited for some time, and a day or two I went to a doctor, good guy. Okay, very senior general physician. So I told him these are my symptoms, and he started writing something. And then I said, doctor, by the way, very senior guy, very nice guy. I said, by the way, I have a few rashes also. You should have seen the expression change totally. He says, you have shingles. It's not that he didn't know it. It's just that he was not able to ask the right kind of questions at that point in time. Because it never occurred to him that it could be that. He didn't ask me the question. If I had not mentioned it, probably I would have also gone home, and then this problem, you would have heard typically, instead of typhoid, you're treated for malaria, and malaria something else, and so on and so forth. People have problems. So that is one of the biggest problems that we face today. The human beings are good at making decisions if the data points are available. We are not too good at remembering or storage. What I understand is our human brain is not good enough it's not a good storage space. That is why you read something, you go in front and sit in front of a examination paper, blank. She's smiling. It happens to all of us, isn't it? And suddenly you're talking to somebody and say, what is that fellow's name? What is that fellow's name? You forget it sometimes because we're not too good at remembering. But given the data points, you're extremely good at making decisions. Some wrong, some right, but we're good at making decisions, connecting the dots. That we are very good at. So, what are we going to talk about today? I'll sort of give you a brief perspective of AI. I'm not going to go into too much of depth, considering the fact that you've already heard two people speak, and there are a lot of people who are going to come, who are going to speak in a lot of detail about a lot of things. We will also touch upon the impact of AI on Ayurveda, and what does the future look like also, and I'm not going to give you any answers. I'm only going to give you more and more things to think about, okay? So effectively today what we will do is we will somewhere in between this is what we will spend a bit of time on. Alright, that's me. I sort of started, like just mentioned, I started off as an army officer and then I moved into the IT services and then I'm currently heading IT for a manufacturing group based in Chennai. We're doing a little bit of artificial intelligence work also. I've been very lucky in terms of having done application development, infrastructure support, and consulting work. And so today that's helping me with my digital transformation work that we are doing in the organization. All right. How many of you have heard this term? It's a typical English, this thing. So, how many of you have heard this being used in the context of artificial intelligence? Anybody? Okay, good. Let me tell you a story. So this story goes back to about 1960 or so. So a bunch of scientists were putting together an artificial intelligence. It was not called artificial intelligence then. It was called something else, and fuzzy logic and those kinds of things it was called. So they wanted to do they wanted funding for their these things. And in those days in America, only 2-3 people had funding, which is one was your NASA, the next thing was a defense, and the third thing was CIA. Okay, so when they went and pitched to CIA, CIA said, okay, can you do translation? They said, yeah, we can do it for you. Said, okay, because those days there was a lot of translation happening, the Cold War days, Russia, USA and all that. So they wanted the Russian material to be translated much faster than they were already being doing. Okay, they had a battery of people sitting and translating, they wanted to do it faster. I said, okay. They gave the money. So these guys went, they developed a model, they came back. So when they were testing it, they said, okay, how do we test it? Translate it, translate it back. Translate it, translate it back. 3 or 4 times, eventually the message should be the same, right? So this is one of those sentences which they tried. And after some time, this was the output. So is it the right translation? Is it right? No, it is right. Spirit is vodka. Flesh, meat. More or less same. Somewhere along the line, if you notice, willing has become good and weak has become rotten. So there is a degree variation which has happened. So it wasn't wrong in that sense, but it was wrong, right? So this didn't give you this. I'll give you one more example, and this time I believe it was Chinese which they tried. Is this wrong? No, it is right. Out of sight, invisible, you're gone. Visible. Out of mind, like we say, tell people, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? Idiot, he's right. So what is missing here is the context in both these cases. And why am I bringing this to you is exactly the sentence which Dr. Acharya mentioned earlier in the day. When you're translating your text from Sanskrit to any other language, this problem will be there. The nuances of a language, you have to be very careful. Okay, 50 years down the line, today if you try to chat GPT, maybe it's got a lot more smarter. It may not do this. But people have figured how to break that also. Where do I download? You must have heard this. Where do I download all pirated Tamil movies? So he told him a lecture saying that no, you're not supposed to pirate it and stuff like that. He says, okay, I will be careful. So which are the sites which I should not go to? He gave him a list, tamilrockers.com, Tamil Rockers. He said, these sites, please don't visit it. So we will always find a way of, beating the system. Right. So staying on the language thing. So the weather is cold today. It's freezing today. It's more or less the same, right? So today how they're doing it is they've gone back to mathematics, core mathematics, and this is how they're doing it. How are they doing it? So is these two same? Yes. They said, okay, weather, freezing is correct, cold, freezing, so there is a match here. And today there is a match. So this is how they're saying that these two are more or less similar. Pure mathematics. And this is one of the scores which I use, which is BART computation. And this, I believe, is how it is calculated. Core mathematics. So what we will do is, in the next 1 hour, is to understand how this algorithm functions. Okay? I don't know what it is, so I can't even explain it to you. So don't bother, I just want to scare you. Next one, please. But this is how artificial intelligence is working today. There's no magic in it. It is hardcore mathematics that is behind it. Right? I don't expect you guys to know or learn, or I'm not even sure if you should, because your capabilities are in a different space. But if you don't know this, you will find it difficult to relate to what you are doing. Right? So we'll talk about something which you know. Familiar to everybody? Familiar, isn't it? Neurons, nodes, connections, synapse, that's what it's called? Right. So that's what it is called. So this is how the human brain is made. And this is what does all the magic. Right. So what are we trying to do today? We are trying to mimic the human brain. How are we trying to mimic the human brain? Is by creating a digital version of it. So how is the digital version depicted? Is like this. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more complicated, but this is how it is. You have nodes, you have various different layers, connections in between them, and so on and so forth. So this is how the digital version of it, of the human brain, is today depicted on everything that you hear about when you talk about neural networks, deep learning, etc. It's based on this kind of a structure. Okay? Right. So these are the names that are given to it. This is what called the input layer, and a whole lot of hidden layers, and there's an output layer. How does this work? Right. So take yourself back to your childhood, and those who got kids will still be able to relate to it. Your mother takes you out, you're a small kid, your mother takes you out. So something goes by, she says, look at that cat, meow. You registered. One tail, one thing like this, 4 legs, one body, one face, ears, eyes. Right? You registered. You don't know the names, but you registered that this is what a cat looks like. I know what a cat is. Fantastic. Next day your mother takes you out again and says, meow, cat. You say, okay, legs, body, face, everything. Yesterday it was brown, today it is white. But mommy is always right. Right? So what you do in the first time is you add those points there. Right? So now mommy said that white one also is a cat. So you add one more point there saying that white also is a cat. So these parameters there, you get an output as a cat. Now life isn't simple. Third day you see one, mommy again says meow. That's black. You go back. That is how you learn. You don't realize it, but that is how you learn. That is how the brain starts getting wired and rewired and rewired. Now again, like I said, life is not simple. 5th day, mommy again takes you out. And she says, hey, look, bow, bow. And then you say, what the hell? 1 tail, 4 legs, 1 face, 1 eye, 2 eyes. Then you realize, oh, wait. Face is slightly different. Cat has got a flat face. He's got a long face. The long phase goes back into your database. Correct? And then you also realize suddenly that it's actually a bigger one. So then, till then, the size was not something which you had factored in. So you factor in size also there. Goes back into your. This is called an epoch, which is a learning cycle. Inputs come in, you get an output. Then set of inputs come in, you don't get the output because the set of inputs were incomplete. You add parameters to it. Got it? So this is how these connections happen between these layers. So all the input parameters are there, and it keeps getting screen. Finally you say cat or a dog, as the case may be. Very important for you to know this. Why? Because if you are going to get into AI and Ayurveda combination, you have to teach the model what Ayurveda is. A set of input parameters always will not give you the same result. Remember the first slide that we saw? The whole set of combinations that were there, you have to teach it. You have to first gather this data, and then you have to teach it that A plus B is not always C. Got it? Okay, so now we talked about cats. Now that you learned what a cat looks like, whether it's a surprise cat or a funny cat, or like my daughter calls it a cool cat, you know it's a cat. But when I show you this, you know it is not a cat. You may know it's a dog, but you definitely know it's not a cat. That is how the learning happens again. And this kind of a learning is called reinforced learning or supervised learning, sorry. Because somebody is supervising you. Somebody is telling you this is it. Somebody is telling you this is not it. Got it? Okay, so now that we realize that you have so many nodes, so many connections, so many this, so somebody said that, okay, if we are able to match the human brain in physical capabilities, you can actually make your artificial intelligence as smart as the brain, maybe even better than the brain. So today the race is to get as close to the human brain as possible. Pardon these numbers, because one place I got 86 billion, in Wikipedia it is another billion, but doesn't matter. The numbers don't matter. The fact is that human brain is there, and somewhere here is where your artificial intelligence models are. Somewhere there, plus minus. We still to get there. But then, there's somebody like me, backbencher, he said, sir, okay, you're saying that getting close to a human brain will actually make the model better, make you smarter and so and so. But there are animals who got more neurons than the human beings. Apparently there are 5-6 more beyond this graph also, I don't know the names. So are they smarter? Are they better than human beings? Then people realize that, oh, this is actually not, while it is good to do this, your compute capacity increases and things like that, this is not probably going to get you where you want to be. Because this is not a scale of smartness. Just being more and more neurons and getting closer to the human brain probably will not get you anywhere. Maybe it will, maybe it will not. Because there are other animals who have got more neurons. And are they smarter than the human beings? Depends on how you define smartness. But that's not what we want to get. So this question about can AI match the human brain still remains. Right, so when this question was coming up, this is familiar to you? Okay, good. So they suddenly discovered when there is a process of folding which happens, when amino acids get together and depending on the peptide bonds that are formed, the protein is formed. So they realized that if you're taking a very simple amino thing of 100 amino acids, the kind of combinations that it needs to go through, which is about 10 to the power of 300 conformations before a protein is formed, which will take you forever and ever and ever. 10 to the power of 300. which is something like 300 zeros after 299 zeros, whatever. But it's actually happening in milliseconds. Again, this was a learning for people to say that, look, sequentially doing things is not going to help you. You can't say that we will do this and then we'll do this and then we'll do this and then we'll do this. It's not going to help you because that's not the way nature is working. Nature is working in a totally different way. That's when they realize that there are actually a third, fourth, fifth, sixth parameter like thermodynamics and various other things which are coming into play. So all this is actually gone into, what we're trying to do is mimic Mother Nature. Mother Nature has done this over the last millions of years and she's perfected it. We're just trying to do catch up. So we're trying to learn from there. Okay? Right. So what we will do is, now that we have reached here, let's try and see how AI and Ayurveda can be used or can combine and become a very potent power or strength, or whatever you would like to call it. Right. So I will not go into all these points because this is exactly what people will talk to you about over the next day and a half, 2 days. But what we will do is we will just touch upon facial recognition, voice sample analysis. These two things, these two things is what we will talk about or give you an example on. The rest of it you will keep hearing again and again and again in the next day or so. Okay, so let's take the facial recognition, or we'll also take the voice part of it. We'll start here. This is an article which was published on November 18 in the Hindu. So apparently what Arvind Eye Hospital is doing is they built a model along with Google where you can actually take a picture of your eye and it is in a position to detect and advise on a diabetic retinopathy. So that's what doctors do. You go there, you meet a doctor, he goes through a test, he looks at you. Based on the patterns that he sees, he tells you whether you have a diabetic retinopathy or not. They have taught an artificial model on this. This was 2018. I had a chance to talk to the CIO of Arvind Eye Hospital about 7-10 days ago when we met in a conference. This is already there. They have given it across their organization and they're using it. And he told me that they have close to about 2.5-3 million pictures is what they had taken to teach it. 2.5-3 million pictures, they had to teach it. The human being had to sit next to it, look at the diagnosis, say it is correct or wrong. Same thing as a cat or a dog. Same example. Instead of a cat or a dog, you are looking at an eye. And matching parameters, matching the visuals that you are getting. The next thing is, by the way, I don't know the details, so don't ask me the medical stuff of it, but he did make a comment saying that they are also in a position today by looking at your, the iris, predict or at least give you an early warning on your problem with the heart. I don't know the medical side of it, but this is a statement which he made, which means just looking at this, you're able to even go down there. Again, it's been trained. So that was about the visual part of it. Now apparently Google has gone ahead and done and identifying TB via coughing sounds. This is exactly what a doctor does. Right? You're trained to do that, right? And here again, if you'll notice, it says somewhere, particularly roughly 10 million cough sounds. So they collected all this data, 10 million of them, fed it into the model, and there's somebody who is a good doctor or doctors who are sitting here and saying, yes, this is TB, this is not TB, this is this kind of TB, this is that kind of TB, etc., etc. It can be taught. Just watch the video. I'm not sure if the audio will come up, but
PT is the top performing doctor in a new study conducted on 5 AI language models. It scored 98% on the same 50 questions that doctors have to answer to get a medical license, beating competitors Claude, Gemini, Grok, and Hugging Chat/Llama. Joining us right now with more on this is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's former FDA commissioner, also a CNBC contributor. And Dr. Gottlieb, I have to say I learned a lot reading through your article that's now posted on this. I think the thing I learned that shocked me the most is that doctors only have to get a 60% to basically get a passing grade on this.
Yeah, and the average score is a 75%, and all of these large language models pass the medical licensing exam. So what we did was we fed 50 questions from the USMLE Step 3 medical licensing exam. So this is the third in a three-part series of exams that doctors take. Typically, you'll take this Step 3 while you're in your first year of residency, and it's the final step before getting your medical license. So we fed 50 questions from this exam to the top 5 large language models. We were expecting more separation, and quite frankly, I wasn't expecting the models to do as well as they did. The reason why we wanted to do this was a lot of consumers and physicians are using these large language models to answer.
You guys don't have a chance. Just look at those numbers. It's getting better and better and better. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, just hold it here, don't play it. So this is something which we have done internally in our organization. Okay, this is a very early prototype, very early prototype. We progressed beyond this. I'm unfortunately not able to show it to you, so I just took a picture of the older one, show it to you. So what we did is we are in the business of maintaining huge engineering equipment and conveyor systems and so on and so forth. So for us, it's very, the kind of maintenance that we do is spread across. Maybe a conveyor system is about 6, 8, 9, 10 kilometers long. Somebody's got to go along and take a look at whether it is working, not working, if there are damages to it and so on and so forth. It's very critical that we keep it running, otherwise the customer is going to charge us for the downtime there. So we built something where we can actually teach a model to look at a conveyor belt and tell us whether there is a damage or not. Okay, so which means it is easier for this guy, he can straight away go where the problem is, fix it and come back. Rather than having to look at the 9 + 9, 18 kilometers of belt, he can look at the exact space where he needs to look at. No, previous one, you have to run the video. It's a very early prototype, does not look like an app at all, doesn't matter, just. So we are opening this thing. So we took a piece of rubber, we showed it to it and we taught it what is a good piece of rubber and where the damage is. So it's come back and told me that this is where the problem is. So it was able to identify it, and it also tells you a number in terms of the percentage of, what is it, that it is sure that it is working. This is another piece. Yeah, it's told me it's about some 88% or something. You may not be able to see it. So it's able to identify it. So again, we taught this with various different pieces. So the thing that I'm trying to tell you right from the beginning, the cat or a dog, or it is a cough or something else, or the retina scan, or it's a piece of rubber, it's the same thing. It has to be taught again and again and again with millions of pieces of data. Is this enough? No. Like I told you, this is a very early prototype for us, was an early prototype for us. Right, let me tell you one more thing. This is a very interesting thing which actually happened 2 weeks ago when I was in Bangalore to pick up an award. So normally in these kinds of things, there will be people like this are taking pictures, and what happens? You put it into Google Drive or Dropbox.com or something like that. There are 3,000-4,000 pictures there, and you go, it's sent to everybody, and then you go take a look at it, correct? This is what happens, this is what is going to happen here also. But are you interested in all those pictures? Am I interested in your picture or your picture? No, I am interested in the picture that I am in. So now what they have done is, there is a QR scanner. So you scan the QR code, a small app opens up. So you put in your name and mobile number, WhatsApp number. So you get a link in your WhatsApp, and every time this guy finishes his session and uploads it, you get to see your pictures. You have to take a selfie, of course, when you're registering. So from that selfie, across those 2 days, this was a 3-day session, 3 days, I got all my images in one place. Now let me show you the interesting part of it. Too bad. Image is not very clear, but so I got this picture. This is not me. This definitely is not me. This is not me. So I was wondering, why did this give it to me? That is when I realized that you see the small thing here? That was my nose and temple. From that selfie, from that angle, it is recognized. Next thing is this picture as is was dark. Because it's a dark hall. And it goes back. He still recognized me and gave it to me. And I found it difficult to find out where I am. But I knew where I was sitting, so I could zoom in and find out, yes, I am there. I found it even more difficult on this because I didn't know where I was walking around. But I spent time in zooming, and on each face I found myself somewhere in the back somewhere. Now it gets even more scarier. I had taken a selfie. Right? I had taken a selfie when I registered. I didn't show it my bald head. It found me out. There I am. So which means that model has been learning from the pictures that it is seeing. Everywhere it is able to recognize this, it is able to get a little bit more because the camera will tilt it to another side, another side, another side, another side. So it's built a 3-degree picture of me. It's able to tell me this. This picture really shocked me. Okay, so I don't think I'll get into details of this either because you will get to hear a lot of it in the next 2 days. Okay, we'll stop here. So, biases. The way the human brain is structured and the way we operate, naturally a set of biases come into us. Naturally, very, very naturally. At some point in time, I think 20, 30 years ago, if you had said, draw me a picture of a doctor, he or she, that kid, will draw a man. We say, draw me a picture of a nurse, that kid who was in school, my school days, I will probably draw a lady as a nurse. Biases which have been built into you. There are a whole lot of other biases which are there for us. Like for example, one of the models where they were testing out, somebody said, give me a picture of generate AI, where you can actually generate images. It said that, tell me or give me a picture of 12 British men. All 12 turned out white. There's a lot of hangama that was there because that bias was there. When you say British, the first thing that you think is a white guy. Somebody went and complained and then they, made the model a lot more non-biased. But unfortunately what they did is they took the whole thing onto the other side. Which is when somebody said, okay, you give me a picture of 12 black British guys, it actually complained saying that how can you say that you are racist and things like that, was the response that he got. They actually took it to the other extreme. So this biases exists within us. This bias exists within the models that are being built today because we are building it. We are the ones who are controlling these things. That's a very dangerous thing. Ethics also, I think there is a session which somebody is talking about. So it's purely about data and the thing that you guys are worried about right in the first session. Sorry, the first questions that I asked, which was about data privacy and things like that. So how much of data do I share? How much of data do I not share? Etc., those kinds of things. So that comes in into the ethics broadly into these. I have started carrying these. There's a lot of examples. If you go into the net and search for hallucination, you'll find it with examples, live examples. Now, hallucination on its own is not too bad. When does it become bad? I sat under a tree, the tree spoke to me, and we spoke for half an hour. No problems. When does it become bad? Is when you have blind faith in it. When I come and tell you something of this nature, and you say, yes, this guy, he's a very dependable fellow. So what he said is correct. So maybe the tree actually spoke to him. That is where the problem comes. Anything that you type on ChatGPT and you get a response, or Gemini, or Claude, or any of these artificial intelligence tools, the problem starts when you blindly start trusting it. That's the case with all of us in all walks of life. You agree with me on that? That is the problem. That is when the problem starts. This on its own is okay. But this with this is a deadly combination. There are people who come back and tell, I mean, you probably would have heard, WhatsApp correct. WhatsApp, Google, I searched Google. Google only combines articles which I have written and he has written and she has written and she has written. If all of us have written the same thing, pointing in a particular direction, that doesn't make it right. That is a problem. And especially in the medical field like you guys, a combination of these two could be life-threatening. Because it could come out with treatments or drug combinations which are actually not possible or maybe even dangerous. But if you blindly trust it without double checking, you could end up killing a few people. Right. Staying on the subject of blind faith, on my WhatsApp thing, I saw that Ask Meta AI or search or something like that. I hadn't paid too much of attention to it. So one of these days, yesterday or so, I went ahead and Rajesh actually, by the way, is my boss. So I said, when did a last chat with Rajesh? My thing was, if it can give me the full history of, summarized history of what and all I spoke to him, I can actually, next question would have been, what are the things that he's asked me to do which I have not done yet? Right? It says, oh, sorry, I don't have access to your personal chat history, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. Obviously, they are not, at least as of now, they are actually not reading my WhatsApp chats. That's what it says. So. Another thing which is not very visible here is, okay, let's just see this. It says ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important info. Exactly. They themselves are telling you that we don't know whether it is right or wrong. Please don't blindly depend or look at it. And if you go into Meta AI, this red mark here, which is not visible, is exactly the same thing only. He says Meta AI can make mistakes, so please double check on important aspects of things. So they are actually putting out a note. So tomorrow you shouldn't say that, I asked it for what do I do for if I have a problem with my head and the head is paining on this side and that side, and it will tell you a list of medicines to take. You take it, something happens to you. They're already taking anticipatory bail to say that we told you, don't trust me. They're telling you, don't trust me. Both of them. Absolutely independent organizations. Okay, so what we had seen earlier was a supervised learning, right? And somebody was telling you that this is what a cat looks like, this is what a dog looks like. We saw Google's two examples of Google's where it was being given pictures of the eye, it was being given sounds of the cough and things like that. That's called supervised learning. Okay. Now, unsupervised learning is where the model itself is allowed to learn for itself and keep moving. How do I, okay, one example I'll give you. You have a very small kid, toddler who's sitting on the floor. You give her or him, let's say a set of colors, okay, and you give those shapes, and every time the red shape is kept on the red thing, if you give it a chocolate or the baby a chocolate, so you'll realize that red and red is a good thing. You put it on a green, you don't get anything, right? That is a kind of an unsupervised learning because you're letting the kid figure out. So only thing here is at the end you tell it whether it is right or wrong. You don't tell it how to go from where it is to arrive at a solution. Now there are huge problems with unsupervised learning today. So there was this example. Let me first explain what the context is here. So all of us have passwords, username, passwords in some place or the other. In various different, maybe Gmail you have username, password, somewhere else you have something else, somewhere else something else. So how is it stored? You type in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABCD, whatever it is. It is not stored as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABCD. Because then it is open for hacking. Anybody can see it. Even the Facebook guy who is supporting you on the database, he can actually go and look at it and say, okay, so and so's password is this. So it is actually encrypted using certain algorithms. Okay. So what will appear there is a long list of jumbled characters. So nobody can read it. The only person who can read it is the system itself when it is translating it back into these numbers. Because when you put in your keyboard, it has to go, convert that back into this number and then see whether these two match and then say yes. Here is your access to Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is. Right? So that's a ciphertext. That's called a ciphertext. So what they did with this model is, they fed it with about millions of plain text on one side and the equivalent encrypted version on the other side. Okay, it fed it. Here it is, few million records. Then what it did is, then it provided it with a plain text. Okay, so then it was given a ciphertext, an encrypted text was given. It figured out the unencrypted version on its own. Nothing was taught. It learned that 192. And what is actually worrying is this sentence. In a way we do not yet fully understand. The human being who's created it does not understand how that machine works. He does not understand how that machine thinks. He does not understand how that machine is learning. It is learned for itself. So now just imagine what will happen if this actually got into the hands of some hacker or somebody. He will have fun with it. Next point. This is a very well published. This actually I took it out of one paper that was published. I don't know the source of it. I don't remember it. It was actually a published paper. Facebook. I don't know if you guys remember reading this thing. So Facebook had two systems running. Okay. After a few days, they realized a lot of communication happening between these two artificial intelligence models. Lot of communication happening. And they got in and tried to find out what was being communicated. They could not understand what was happening. Why? Because these two machines had invented a new language and they were talking to each other. It's a very well published article or a incident which happened July 2017 it says. And what did Facebook do? Scared. They actually went and pulled the plug on it. They switched off those machines, and I don't know what they did with it, but they switched it off. Both those machines, they switched it off. They said, we're scrapping this entire plan, we're scrapping this entire project. They said, end of it. They were scared. And because Facebook is a listed company, they had to come out and say where that money was spent, so they had to bring out with that. Right. This is another, unfortunately, again, these images are not very clear, but anybody has been to a data center? So all these services, Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, everybody on Insta, right? Almost everybody? Very good. So where does this get served out of? It is running somewhere, isn't it? The servers are running somewhere. And they are serving millions of people and tens of millions of hits every second. So to run that kind of a thing, just imagine your laptop sitting, you open one Excel file and one Word file and one something else, it becomes slow. So now imagine if you're going to serve tens of millions of requests coming in, it's coming from data centers like this. Huge. Just look at this. Just imagine the amount, and these are all printed circuit boards which are generating heat. It has to be cooled. It has to be provided power to run. Right? Just imagine the amount of cooling that is required for this. Just to give you an idea, that is this fellow who is using a cycle to travel inside the data center. He needs a cycle to travel inside the data center. It's that huge. This is the cooling area that is supporting these data centers. Just to give you again another picture or a reference, that's a cycle there. Just look at the size of these pipes which are carrying cool air in and hot air out. It's that big. That is the amount of cooling that is required. That is the amount of power that is going into running these data centers. Why am I saying this? I'll come to it in a while. If you guys get a chance to go to a data center, you probably won't find this size of data centers not in India at this point in time. There are smaller ones, but it will give you a picture. Anybody in Chennai, let me know. I'll take you into one of them. Right. Now this is why I was saying that. One query on ChatGPT is equivalent to 10 times of carbon output of a Google query. Google search query, 10 times. I'm using ChatGPT as an example. It could be Gemini, any AI tool that you use. 10 query is equal to watching 1 hour of YouTube. 140 queries is equal to washing 1 load of laundry. Huge. Just 140 queries, which is probably around 150, 100 people here. Each of us put in a query is equivalent to washing a full tub of laundry, which we normally do only once a week or something like that. That is the amount of energy that goes into it. The next thing is, anybody on Twitter? One tweet is equal to 0.2 grams of carbon emission. And Twitter on its own lets out enough carbon to go to the moon and back 7 times for a small car. You take a small car, you drive to the moon and back, you can do it 7 times. Just imagine the amount of carbon you're releasing into the atmosphere. One day, Twitter is doing it. Coming back to the ChatGPTs, it says that they are releasing close to about 43,200 kilograms every day. Now, just to give you a perspective, small cars in an entire year only let out 1470. They're doing 10 times that in a day. Why am I saying this? You need to know that this is the cost. This is the environmental cost that we're leaving behind. Every time we use AI, I'm not saying don't use AI. You need to be aware of it. You need to be responsible in using it. That is the idea. So it doesn't come cheap. It comes at a cost. Cost of, the economy is also, there's drain on that. There is also drain on you're impacting the environment also. Numbers. Let me give you numbers. These are all taken from their own balance sheets. Meta, Facebook that is spending about 35 to 40 billion in capex. Amazon 14, 12 in a quarter. Microsoft 14 billion. They're not saying that this entire 14 plus 12, that's about 100 billion, I guess. They're not saying that everything is going into AI, but a substantial portion of it is going into AI because all of them have got good models today, serving huge number of requests. So if this is the amount of money that is going in, is it coming back? These are all organizations, commercial organizations, business organizations running for a profit. Where is the profit? Nobody's been able to show any line of profit at all. They don't even have an estimate as to when they will turn green on AI, but they're all spending. Now the problem is, will it get returns? If it doesn't get returns, what happens is, there is a possibility that this whole thing will collapse if the returns are not there. If ChatGPT or OpenAI is not able to get the returns and give it back to their investors, what's going to happen? If Meta is not able to get returns out of the AI investments, which is huge, it's not small, company could collapse. So there is an economic, potentially there is an economic problem also. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying it is there. Could blow up anytime or it could not blow up at all, which is good. And just to show how people are into the IT space forever. Long-term plans. This is a good example. Microsoft actually owns a nuclear power station today. Sorry, Amazon. They own a nuclear power station. Can you imagine? That is the long term that they are into in this. Right. Now let us come to India. How is this going to impact India? This is Geeta Gopinath. So she spoke about saying that India needs to create more jobs, which is good. Or it's a very valid point. But an economy is growing up. There is not dispute of that. The number of job creation is also going up. No disputes about that either. But a new term has come up which is called jobless growth. Where is that? Jobless growth. Which means the growth is happening. The number of jobs that are being created are not sufficient enough. Why is it not sufficient enough? Because this is how our population is growing. This is not sufficient for that. The kind of growth of population and the kind of number of jobs that are being created do not match. So there is a social problem also that is there. Why? Simple. What you were able to do with 10 people 2 years ago, today you can do it with 2 guys. You don't need the rest of the 8 people. But there are 8 people out there. That is another potential problem that we are facing. It's a potential problem. Unless we figure out some way. Why? Because people's productivity is increasing because of usage of good tools and things like that. I'm not specifically saying artificial intelligence, but technology in general. Right. So this is a bit of a theory here, but I will relate it to the practical side of things. So this is a Gartner's hype cycle. What they say is an idea comes up and there's a lot of expectations that are there. Okay. Some get met, some don't get met, and there is a disillusionment. And after some time you realize that, yeah, you can put it to good use. Okay. And then it reaches a plateau of productivity. An example of the people in the 50 plus range might be able to understand. In the late 90s, there was something called a .com. Everything was .com. And people said that you can do this, so yeah, you can get this, you can buy toothbrushes online and stuff like that. And everybody laughed. It was a good idea. There was a lot of expectations. What happened? It never took off. Whole lot of companies went underwater after that. Then what happened? Today, are you buying toothbrushes online? You are. You can. Right? So somebody after some time figured out that, yeah, there is a way of doing it. The mobile platforms became better, your internet connectivity became better, the number of desktops increased, number of laptops increased, mobile connections increased. The same idea came back. So in the 90s when somebody said you could buy a toothbrush, you said, okay. But you couldn't, you can do it today. So today, in my view, this is again my view, the AI is somewhere here. There will be a lot more hype that is created. We don't know whether it will go down, but in all probability it will. Because all the indications are towards that. There's a whole lot of money that is being spent, no visibility on returns, whole lot of jobs not being created, etc. So all those points which are, in all probability it will go down, but somewhere along the line we will find out what can be done better. We will use it, because it's a good tool. It's a very, very, very good tool. This is my own theory, okay. So what I have noticed is, human beings have a very cyclical way of thinking. We think that we are progressing, but actually it's cyclical. So initially we started off with thumb impressions on paper and things like that, correct? Then we became educated, so we started writing. Then somebody discovered a typewriter, so we started typing. Then the computers came, and then this thing. And what have we done today? We've gone back to thumbprints. But we are egoistic. We will not call it a thumbprint. What do we call it? Biometric. It's the same thing. Right? Again, we were very happy utilizing natural fertilizer. My grandparents probably had done that. Then we went into Dow Chemicals and all these guys came in with huge things. Now we're going back to that. But we won't call it natural fertilizer, we'll call it biofertilizer. Right? So similarly, utensils into plastic. Now there's a huge shift happening back. Then the centralized computing was, earlier it used to be centralized computing. I don't know if you remember, even today if you go to the railway station and book a ticket, he just got a small green panel in front of him. The compute is actually happening somewhere. There's nothing happening locally. Nothing happening locally. So that used to be the case earlier when computers actually started. It was centralized in a huge room, huge air conditioning and things like that. And then Microsoft brought it, Bill Gates brought it to your desktop. Now the whole thing is going back. We won't call it centralized, we'll call it cloud. The same thing. Right? Circular economy. Can somebody tell me what is circular economy? What is circular economy? Yeah, circular rotating. Come on. Okay, so the earlier days, what used to happen, I remember my younger days, let's say take an example of an electric iron. Okay, all of us had it at home. Would stop functioning. What dad would used to do, he used to take it to the repair guy. He would change that filament, you would bring it back. Almost my entire life I had seen only one electric iron. Today you don't do that. You don't even find people who are willing to repair it for you, right? All you do is a use and throw. But the government of today has realized that that's actually not the way to go. So if you actually Google it when you get back, there is a whole lot of talk happening about how do we enable this circular economy so that, and especially important today because of the EVs coming in. The batteries are all going to go into your landfills. It is going to leach, it's going to come back as dirty water to you. So they are very worried about it. So they're actually trying to propagate the circular economy thing again. This, do I need to explain this? COVID came, people said, school, tata bye-bye. Everything is going to happen online. It didn't happen. We went back. We do use Zoom, don't we? There is somebody on Zoom or something here. We are using it. Now go back to that Gartner cycle. Huge expectations, trough, but you're still using it, but probably half of what was hyped at that point in time. Okay? So the cycle is correct. Correct, Anna? Okay. And this is my favorite. When I show it to my kids, they're very angry about it. I said, 3,000 years ago we started there, you're still here only. Just the shape has changed. Correct, Anna? Sir? Okay. So, there's one thing missing in this. Can anybody tell me what it is? Yeah, exactly. We had Ayurveda, then it went into modern medicine. Now we're going back there. We're finding our roots. But we will not say that that was somebody had already figured out the right things. What will we call it? Traditional medicine. Right? That's what it is called. But you won't say, no, my grandmother knew better than me. No, I will not say that. Okay, so taking on these two things, I had actually in 2017 written two articles on LinkedIn. One is about automation. Those days the AI word was not very popular, so it is still automation. So whether automation itself is a new plastic, which is it will take us 30-40 years to realize that probably we did not need it. Or we will realize that we will use it in a more responsible way because of the things. And the other one, so in case somebody wants to scan this, you can scan it. And the other one is the same thing. So life is a circle. So it's basically titled on that. It was written in 2017. July, August 2017. I probably didn't have much to do, so I was writing a lot of these things. But it seems to be right. When we look back, it seems to be right. Okay, so now that I've scared you enough about what AI can do and what will do and all those kinds of things, my personal view is that the data crunching, the finding the relationships, identifying patterns, these are things which takes up a lot of compute, whether it is here or on a computer. Let the machine do it. You get back insights. You keep the decisions and the actions to yourself. Don't give that to a machine, whatever kind of a machine it is. Don't give it back. That is my personal view. Instead, go in for expert systems. Now, expert systems have a very nuanced definition today. It might change as we go along. What it basically says is the same thing. It does all the work, gives you the insights, you take your decisions, you do your actions. Don't outsource that. Don't give it to somebody else. Don't give it to a machine which you cannot control or you potentially cannot control. And in my view, this is the best suited for something like Ayurveda, which is the expert systems, not the full-fledged AI or a Gen AI. Personal view again. Again, use it as an augmentative force, not a replacement, which is we replaced the muscle part of it with a machine, but you still need somebody to operate it. The muscle was replaced. So he can shovel maybe 1 ton a day. This can do 15 tons in a minute. But you still need a human being to run it. Similarly, do it for the brain work. The muscle part of it is taken care of. Now we're slowly moving into replacing the machine, the brain part of it, how we can do it. So this is probably can be called as the next industrial revolution that's coming. The first industrial revolution where machines were brought in and people were using those machines. Now this cannot happen on its own because human beings are not going to go away anywhere anytime soon. So are you going to still write when there is a typewriter? Are you going to type when there is already a computer? Are you going to use a computer when there is a mobile phone? Your choice. Whether we like it or we don't like it, this is a tsunami which is there. Either you stand in front of it or get on a boat and float along. Skill upgrades. You have to upgrade your skills in some way or the other. You can try to oppose it, but in my view, I don't think it's going to happen. So the best thing is to get on a boat and ride the wave. What is a boat? Skill. Upskill yourself in a way which is relevant to your area of activity. Yeah, this is a standard 2 slides that I have, irrespective of which audience I'm talking to, especially if it's a student audience. You don't have a choice. Once you decided to do skill upgrade, don't let somebody else do it for you. You have to get in and learn it for yourself. You have to. Unless you have a venture capitalist who's backing you, who's coming with a bag of money, then you can actually sit behind and get somebody else to do a job. Otherwise, you have to learn it for yourself. Learn what is necessary. Do you need to go into that complex mathematical calculation and become a champion of that? I don't think so. You're doctors. Learn how to use it. Learn which model suits better. Learn how to tweak a model. Not build a model, but tweak a model. For that, whatever skill is required, learn it. And learn it quickly. Because today's skill is not going to be what is required tomorrow. It will change. So the faster you get on the boat, the better it is for you. Same thing. There are tons of certifications outside. Can you just close that window, please? So, you got to again get certified also. Because learning one thing is nice, but why do we have exams is not to trouble you, because that's what I always thought. But actually it is more about bringing forward or you yourself understanding whether you understood something or not. Okay, so please get certified, because without a certification per se it's not really relevant. You may not find too much of use for it, but then you don't even know whether you understood it or not. Yes, so now let's get your phones out and let's do one more survey.
AI will replace that in diagnosis of a disease.
So the young lady here asked a question about what is the question?
About how the DNA fingerprinting or DNA analysis leads to know about a people's prakriti.
Okay. Same question, different words, same answer. So they're asking, there are a set of symptoms, is what he said. She said there are a set of inputs, which is DNA sequencing. The end result that both of them are looking for is how do you get from here to here? Correct? Correct, Anna? That is a question, right? In summary, between the two of you. The answer is very simple. Pattern matching. It's very simple. Answer is pattern matching.
Like paracetamol to everyone. You are literally saying like how can we analyze a person's practices? You are saying that everyone have a same kind of matching features may be there. Like we are from Tamil Nadu, some are from Rajasthan, they may have a different set of things, sir. And what you said, like if my father had a different prakriti and my mother had a different prakriti and my siblings have a different prakriti, but they have some common prakriti they are having. I'm having an entirely different prakriti from which I was born to the Ritu or whatever you say. And when analyzing this, what if they add my prakriti to my parents and siblings and they say that I'm having their prakriti? Doesn't that make sense? We are literally going to the regionalized medicine, like based on a particular region and the person. Again, we are going up to the same thing, isn't it, sir?
Let me repeat what I said. I said you have to look for patterns. I didn't say that you blindly say that your dad is this and mother is this, so you are this. Wrong. What is a pattern? Pattern is it could possibly you would have got it from a grandparent or maybe your great grandparents also. So there is a pattern to it. Why didn't your siblings get it? Is because there was some combination which happened of X and Y which prevented them from getting it, you got it. So there could be a pattern, and that is a pattern that people are trying to analyze to see that how do we make sure that certain genetic diseases or disorders are not passed on. Because there's certain combinations that happen, there is a pattern to it. So that's pretty much it. I'm pretty convinced about it. If data is available, you can find patterns too. Because I live in data on a daily basis, so on a daily basis I'm discovering patterns in my business. This fellow has given you business of this much in this month, he is not giving it to you for next 7 months. Why? Because when I go back and look at unstructured data which says that fellow's line of business is shut down. That is not there in my data. So it's all about putting these numbers together.
The percentage still won't vary. If I give a medicine to a Vata Prakriti person and giving the same medicine to another Vata Prakriti person.
Who's asking you to standardize? That is exactly the mistake which the so-called allopathy is doing, so-called modern medicine is doing, which is what you guys are trying to reverse. Correct? No, I am not saying give everybody 50 marks. That's not the point. I am saying there is a pattern to it. And the teachers agree that there is a pattern to it. When somebody gets 59, you give them 60 because you want them to go back as first class. Huh?